Hola, hola, hola. My name is Kween Beatrix. Welcome to a new episode of Trucha and Lucha. Y'all, I have been busy. It has been a minute, but I'm so happy to be back here with you. This episode is a really one that I think is important. It's part of a necessary conversation that we need to have as a community about abortion access. Our guests today are from Frontera Fund, so make some noise for Frontera Fund. We're going to talk about why Frontera Fund exists, the kind of work that they do in our community, and why it's important to talk about abortion. So make sure y'all stick around. At the end of the episode, we will have a special musical appearance, special little music video from Los Skagaleros from right here in the Rio Grande Valley about Rosie Jimenez. And y'all, it'll make sense. Watch the episode. I'll see y'all in a bit. Thank y'all so much for being here today. I'm super excited to have this conversation with y'all. Today we have some amazing guests with us. I will go ahead and let them introduce themselves. If y'all want to introduce yourselves, please provide your name, your pronouns, and your title.
My name is Zaina Zamora. I use she, her, ella pronouns, and I am the executive director of Frontera Fund.
I'm Kathy Torres. I serve on the board of directors of Frontera Fund, and I use she, her, and ella pronouns.
Thank y'all so much for taking time to have this very important conversation. It's super relevant to our region and to our state. The work that y'all do is amazing. So I wanted to start from the beginning, right? Tell us about Frontera Fund. When did it start? Why did it get started? And what kind of work do y'all do?
So Frontera Fund started in 2015. It was brought together by a group of young queer cis women in the Valley who really saw a need for abortion funding here in the Rio Grande Valley. There's other abortion funds in Texas, but there was none that really serviced our area exclusively. So it was kind of a 5-year project. It started in 2015, and after 5 years, they were going to reevaluate to see if they had met their goals or if they hadn't, kind of to dismantle themselves. And since then, Frontera Fund has really grown a lot, and we've been able to really thrive in the Valley currently. So we're still growing, and we're still trying to have bigger capacity to help more people in the Valley, but there is a really big need in the Valley for Frontera Fund. And Kathy can tell you what we do.
What we do is we, fund abortion, right? We help people fund, we help people with their procedures specifically, but we also provide practical support. So say someone here from the RGV needs to travel out of the RGV for their abortion, we can help with transportation costs, with hotel, even ground transportation when they're there, because, how are folks going to get from their hotel to the clinic? So it's practical support as well as direct procedure support. And, we also try and help out other community organizations here, since we're all, doing mutual aid efforts. So we are pretty well-rounded, but, we're here to fund abortion for folks in the RGV or folks coming to the RGV.
Thank you, Kathy, Zena. Real quick, right? Like, why is it important that we have these resources available to people, right? And specifically, why do we need them here in the Rio Grande Valley?
Abortion is really expensive. That's one reason that we're needed, right? So the Valley, I think, has the most expensive, it's the most expensive place to have an abortion. So the starting cost for an abortion in the Rio Grande Valley is around $800. So it's really expensive. There's no other way to phrase that. It's just a really expensive procedure. And Texas law prohibits people with Medicaid, it prohibits people with even private insurance from getting abortion covered. Abortion is healthcare, and it should be covered under, insurance, but it is not. And not to mention that Texas has one of the highest uninsured rates. So a lot of people are having to pay for this out of pocket. Another reason the work we do is so important is because Texas has had so many clinics shut down. And so a lot of the clinics that were around like 5-6 years ago are no longer around. So the clinic in the Valley, Whole Women's Health in McAllen, is the only clinic south of San Antonio. So, and we live in Texas, we know how big the state is, right? So traveling is a big part of getting abortion care. There's a lot of abortion deserts where there's no place to get an abortion, say in like Laredo or Corpus Christi. So those people are having to drive over 100 miles to get the care that they need. And not to mention that abortion takes time. And it's not necessary time. The laws that Texas has enacted and the restrictions makes people wait 24 hours to get an abortion. So you're taking time away from whatever you have to do. If you're doing hourly labor, then that's time away from earning your wage, right? If you need childcare to help, so somebody can take care of your children while you're going to your appointment, that's childcare expenses that you have to do. So the reason we do the work we do is to really help people get the care that they need.
Not only is there a ridiculous distance between our clinic here in the Valley to San Antonio, what's in between that? A checkpoint. So you have a population of the Rio Grande Valley who have different citizenship statuses that are unable to leave the Valley to get an abortion. So we found that we need to be available for individuals in need, specifically for that reason. And, in general, we have to be here. We wish we could live in a world where we don't have to exist, right? Where people can just like walk in and get their abortion on demand. That is the goal. But that's what we're fighting for, right? And that's why we do this direct work to just pay for the abortion and try to make it to alleviate any financial barriers that we can. Since Roe v. Wade was passed, Henry Hyde himself a few years later, said that, basically stated that if I can't ban abortion, I'll just make it hard for low income people to get it. So there's always just disproportionate attacks on low income individuals, people with differing citizenship statuses to obtain an abortion. And we're here to alleviate that as best as we can.
What are the dangers when people aren't able to access abortion care? Like what are the dangers that folks can face when they don't have or can't get the support of groups like Frontera Fund?
Primarily, that is not being able to access abortion care directly stomps on our body autonomy to make decisions for ourselves and our futures, and being able to nurture ourselves, our families, decide if we want to parent in the future. So it sounds very arbitrary, but our body autonomy is who we are and how we navigate our lives. So a lot of times there's so many societal reasons that place our lives in danger because of our gender, our race, our socioeconomic status. And it shouldn't be that way, but it is. So because of that, we need to have access to abortion care to plan the course of our lives accordingly, safely, and with dignity. That's the concept of reproductive justice. That's the framework that we try to maintain. And it's an important framework because, like I said, it's how we navigate our lives.
What is the most rewarding part of the work that y'all do in your personal experience?
For me, it's just being able to help people, right? So I think people have a very stereotypical view of the type of person who gets an abortion, but I think people need to realize abortion is completely normal. All types of people get abortions for a multitude of reasons. We never ask somebody why they're getting an abortion because really it's none of our business, and we're just there to help them with the decision that they made. And it's just, it's the simple things like getting the message like, oh my God, you guys helped me so much, thank you. Or, just things like that. Is just being able to help the people from the Rio Grande Valley, and also just doing it without any sort of judgment on our end. I feel there's a lot of stigma. The Valley is very conservative in its views on abortion in a lot of areas, and I feel a lot of times these people are navigating their care, getting their care. It's very isolating for them, and it can be hard doing something like this alone. So I think having us there and just being able to help people is the most rewarding part of the work.
How about you, Kathy?
One of the other more rewarding things for me is that we have the means to help. That's been our overall goal, to help people pay for their abortions, and we're able to fund people weekly. And that's exciting. And it's also exciting to see the community come together and help us achieve that goal. We just had our fundathon where we exceeded our $10,000 goal. It was really great because that was strictly, yeah, it was strictly a community effort. So, and all of those funds go directly to funding abortion. So it always feels so good to reach those goals, to raise those funds, because we, firsthand see where it goes directly. So that's what's exciting, being able to do it.
So we've talked a little bit about the work that y'all do. Zena, you did touch on something that I want to, kind of maybe if we can expand on a little bit, about these kind of like conservative views on abortion and abortion access that unfortunately we see a lot of here in the Rio Grande Valley. What would be your message to folks who have those conservative views? And yeah, like what would you tell them to, I guess, help them understand why this work is necessary?
I always go back to the National Network of Abortion Fund. I love their saying that goes, everybody loves someone who's had an abortion. So abortion is so normal that somebody in your life, whether you know it or not, has had an abortion. And I think it's really important to get a holistic view of what it means for someone to get an abortion. Abortion is healthcare. It is something that is completely normal. It is something that's been around since pregnancy has been around, and people are making the best decisions for themselves and for their lives. And I don't think we as people should be judgmental on other people and making these decisions, because we have this doesn't impact our lives at all, right? And we want what's best for our community. And what's best for our community is people having the dignity and to have the choice to decide what is best for them. And usually pregnant people who can get pregnant are discriminated against in so many different ways, even for the fact of being pregnant, right? We see people who get pregnant get discriminated against in jobs. There's not a lot of support for people who get pregnant as far as like, maternal leave, child support, that kind of stuff. So when people are making these decisions, they're really just doing it because this is what is best for them. So I think it I'm always trying to come from a place of love and understanding and compassion, right? Like that's the best way to view everything. And I would tell them, like, come from a place of love and come from a place of compassion and try to imagine what it's like to be in these people's shoes. You don't know what their life is going through. You don't know if they're having to make this decision because they need to pay rent, or they have to buy diapers for the baby that they already have. Like it's really, you need to come with it at a holistic view and a very compassionate view and a very loving view.
Kathy, what would be your message to folks who, put a lot of stigma or continue to perpetuate the stigma around abortion access?
Yeah, like what Xana mentioned, and to put it bluntly, like, just mind your business. I mean, people are
that too, like, get away from, stay out.
Come on, like it's not anything that's impacting them whatsoever. And I guess, people are entitled to their opinion, but when that opinion becomes violent and starts to infringe on our rights, quite frankly, then there's no need for it whatsoever. Like that kind of like viewpoint goes out the door. Last session, there was a arson attempt at our clinic here in McAllen. So when those views, these movements the pro-life movements, the anti-choice movements to, deny us of our right to abortion, become violent, it goes out the window. There's no need for it, and they need to mind their business.
I mean, I'm in drag, but outside of drag, I am a cis gay man. And it always just rubs me the wrong way when like a lot of these people are like basically opening their mouth and spewing a lot of hate. And like we said, there was as we were setting up for this, there was a potential shooting, or there probably was a shooting in San Antonio at a clinic, and it's just like, all that energy for what? Like, what are you really getting out of that when it's like clearly not your body, clearly not your choice, but people somehow feel like entitled. And I mean, for me, and that's why, like, for me, especially with stuff like this, with this series, like, it's like we want to bring these conversations to the front. And I remember when we did the first iteration of Dry Out HIV with Valley AIDS Council. It's a drag queen training and mentorship program specifically around HIV, but we did have a presentation from some advocates from Planned Parenthood, because we really wanted the queens to see the intersections of like abortion access and the challenges the queer community faces. And it was really eye-opening because some folks just had never been exposed to those conversations, but doing it in a way that like was like, understand where you come from as a person and as an as an entertainer, and like how you can use your voice and your platform to advocate not just for the work and the challenges we face as queer people, but also for people who also need abortion access. And so again, y'all, thank you so much for the work that y'all do. We can't talk about abortion access in the Rio Grande Valley without talking about Rosie Jimenez. It's a name that comes up a lot in our community down here in South Texas. If you can tell me a little bit about Rosie Jimenez, who was she, and why is she important into the work that y'all do?
So Rosie Jimenez, the best. She was a McAllen native here in, she was a McAllen native, right? Now her story really resonates in the movement and in, folks here in the RGV, because she unfortunately passed away due to a botched abortion. So prior to that, she was a single mother, a student, a hardworking parent, and a couple years after Roe v. Wade was passed, Henry Hyde filed what's called the Hyde Amendment. And the Hyde Amendment restricted federal funds from covering abortion, meaning restricted Medicaid from covering abortion and even insurances. So Rosie, ended up being pregnant and didn't want to be. So she sought abortion care and was going to, hopefully utilize her Medicaid to cover that. But she was denied because the Hyde Amendment had just passed. So in doing that, she had a scholarship check in her pocket, and she went and she sought care by her own means. Unfortunately, that led to sepsis, and she passed away. So she's one of the first documented cases of, people passing away as a direct result of the Hyde Amendment. And she's from the RGV. She was from the RGV, from McAllen, could be your sister, Aunt Thea, one of us. It is and was one of us. So because of that, that just sort of struck shockwaves, through our community and through folks in the abortion rights movement, because Rosie should still be here. That shouldn't have been the reason why she left. She should still be here. She should still be in community with us. And, hearing from her daughter, who we've, as abortion funds communicated with, since we filed Rosie's law, based off of what her daughter says, we know that Rosie would be right here with us, like fighting the good fight, because she was really cool and vibrant and like with it, at the time. So even though we didn't meet her personally, we missed her because, like I said, she should still be here.
I always find Rosie's story very compelling because, like you said, Kathy, I mean, it's someone that looks like us and someone who is from our community and who was facing the same challenges that we all do on a day-to-day basis. We know what it's like to be from this region, low income, unfortunately. With Rosie, I mean, she really has inspired and continues to inspire a lot of people and a lot of advocates in our community to do the work that we do, especially y'all, who are there on the front lines helping people get the care that they need. And she's even inspired, legislation. I know that, as we know, every 2 years in Texas, our state leadership comes together to work on proposing bills on new legislation and taking care of the budget in Texas. Tell us a little bit about Rosie's Law. What is Rosie's Law, and what is the purpose of that law?
Sure. So as Kathy mentioned the story of Rosie, I think what's important to to note in that story is that Rosie had insurance, she had Medicaid, right? But due to the Hyde Amendment, she was not able to get the care that she needed because Medicaid is not allowed to cover abortion care. So Rosie's Law is a law that was organized by us, and two of our sibling funds, Lilith Fund, which helps Central Texas, and Texas Equal Access Fund, which helps in North Texas around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We got together, put together this law called Rosie's Law, and it was introduced to the Texas legislature. And what Rosie's Law would do is would restore private insurance and Medicaid coverage of abortion. So right now, Rosie's Law is kind of stuck in committee. We're trying to get a hearing. We've had multiple legislators sign on as co-authors, but this is the types of proactive laws that we really, really need to push in the Texas legislature. Where a lot of the time we're playing defense as far as abortion care. It feels like every 2 years they're working on chipping away at access. So Rosie's Law is one of many proactive laws in the Texas Ledge that is looking to expand abortion care.
The Ledge is almost over, which is like, but we see them working on all these other bills that are not proactive, that are a little bit, well, that are full on detrimental and practically, I mean, in the way I see some of these other abortion bills at the Ledge, they're just scary. Like they are scary.
Very
bills.
scary.
And I know right now they've pushed I think SB 8, Senate Bill 8. Do y'all want to talk about Senate Bill 8? What is Senate Bill 8 and what are the dangers with that bill?
Where do we begin?
Where do we begin?
It's a lot to unpack. So Senate Bill 8 is a bill that would restrict abortion to when fetal cardiac activity is present, right? So when a doctor is able to hear a heartbeat. And that's usually around 6 weeks of pregnancy. So it's essentially an abortion ban, right? What really makes it an abortion ban is, one, a lot of people don't know that they're pregnant at around 6 weeks. So if you have a regular menstrual cycle, that is kind of like 2 weeks after your missed period, that you would have to know by then that you're pregnant. And again, that's assuming you have a regular menstrual cycle. A lot of people don't have that, right? Another thing that really makes it a almost near total ban is that the current Texas law requires that doctors perform ultrasounds, and they need to be able to see the fetus on the ultrasound. There'll be times when we get callers who will ask like, oh, did you get your ultrasound? And they'll say, oh, it was too early, right? And so usually by the time the doctor can see the fetus is when they can hear the heartbeat. So if they can't see the fetus, then they can't perform the abortion. And by the time they see the fetus, then the heartbeat's present. So then they're not allowed to perform the abortion, right? So it's kind of like, well, there's not going to be a way to have an abortion. On top of that already restrictive law, they put language in the bill that creates a civil cause of action that will allow anybody from the United States or anybody to sue anyone who helps somebody get an abortion in Texas. So basically, it is a total attack on abortion funds and basically anybody who would help anybody get an abortion in Texas. So imagine
your Uber driver.
Yes, your Uber driver having a friend drive you to the clinic. Can you imagine, like, I have a daughter, and if my daughter said I want an abortion, I would be right there with her to help her. Imagine somebody suing you for helping your own daughter or your own friend or your own family member, your mother, whoever, like helping them get health care. That's what this bill does. It will go into effect in September 1st. We're hoping that it's going to get challenged legally, but it's a very dangerous bill, because even if it does get challenged legally, I think a part of all these restrictive bills, the part part of their role is to create this really confusing narrative around abortion so that people feel like even if it gets challenged, it's already in the air that, oh, abortion's illegal, right? And so it creates a lot of really confusing narrative around the legality of abortion. But just to kind of really bring it home, abortion is legal in Texas, and it is still legal in Texas. And Frontera Fund is here. We're going to fight with our other sibling funds to make sure that we're going to continue trying to help people get the care that they need.
So what are your concerns, Kathy, with Senate Bill 8?
I mean, all of the above for sure, but like it's also just annoying how strategic they are when they file these bills. You know, like with the civil cause of action, that's also going to cause just a bunch of frivolous lawsuits that's going to delay the process, and they know that. So that way it becomes too late and folks will have to seek care out of the state. Again, that's what we're here for. We are totally here, and we're going to work towards being able to do that, to have, help people get the care out of state should this pass. We're fully prepared for that. But like, it's just so frustrating that that is like the end goal. Like, they know that Roe v. Wade is like the law of the land. So just like they've done in previous years, they make these laws knowing they're completely barbaric, and sometimes they do get passed, and then there it goes, just a bunch of delays. Same thing with the mandatory ultrasound. Why same thing with having to go to the clinic just to take a pill. Why? So it's all of these little things that they do to delay the process because they know they can't ban it, but they'll do everything they can to nearly ban it, just like SB8.
Yeah, they just make it really, really hard. I mean, that's why we lost so many clinics a couple of years ago, because of state legislation again that like came in. And then also there was like all these CPCs that get funded by the state that like CPCs, for folks who are watching, are crisis pregnancy centers. Unfortunately, we have several of them here in the Rio Grande Valley. They are not real place. I mean, they're real places in the sense that they're there, but they're not anywhere you would want to go to get any kind of healthcare, because they're, from what I know, they're not even real medical professionals.
No, they're absolutely not.
They just wear lab coats to look legit.
They cosplay medical.
They cosplay doctors.
They cosplay doctors. They're pretending they're in Grey's Anatomy.
And I think what's really interesting about, it's not interesting, it's very upsetting about SB8 is it is particularly detrimental to our population, because as Kathy said, we get a lot of callers who are undocumented. So one of the workarounds we're seeing in SB8, if it stands, is that, we'll be able to send callers out of Texas. But the problem with undocumented callers or people with certain immigration status, they cannot travel, right? So they're stuck. What are they going to do? Abortion is not going to go anywhere. Abortion will still happen. I think what you're going to see is a rise in unsafe abortions and a rise in self-managed abortions, which are not necessarily unsafe, right? So self-managed abortion is something that can be a safe thing to do, but it is also not legal in Texas. So you're putting a lot of people's lives in danger by this, like this bill is putting a lot of people's lives in danger.
With no consideration of the people that it'll impact, what kind of effects that will have in the family, in the community. I mean, here in Texas specifically, and in our region, let alone just across the state, like there are so many bills and so many things that our state leadership could be focusing on. Like, we still don't have answers about this winter freeze situation. People, like, we lost so many people. The power grid, my power went out this week with like a little bit of a thunderstorm for like 5 hours, and I was like triggered. And so so many things that our leaders could be focusing on, but except they spend their time literally passing these legislations that are, again, just going to further marginalize people to a place where they're going to have unsafe abortions. I mean, if y'all can, like, you don't have to go into full detail, but like, what would be considered an unsafe abortion, right? Like, what is that?
Like what Dana said, like self-managed abortion is, can be safe and is something, that can be done. But it's more the risk that people may not have access to do that properly or safely, and will end up in situations where there can be complications, may go with individuals that can't do them, and may get sick and may get ill, or they'll do other things to try and attempt by their own means, and that can even mean, putting themselves at risk. Not to mention, a lot of times people who do not want to be pregnant and who don't want to parent, and they're potentially being forced to, that has a detrimental effect on someone's mental health, or it can at least. So if someone kind of falls into that loop, that can also be potentially dangerous. So there's so many different ways that there could be dangers, and that's just a few. There's all kinds of stories out there. We've been asked questions before by callers, and there's so many different ways that this could things could go wrong. And there's also options to do it at home, like I said. But if people don't have that means, then any other type of means could potentially be dangerous.
Well, I have two last questions. One is a real question. The other one's more like, where can folks plug in? Let's end on a positive note. We still don't know what's happening in San Antonio. By the time this video airs, maybe we'll have more information. So we're praying for those people who may or may not have been impacted by that. But what is your hope for abortion access in our community here?
I always think, like, doing this work, that I'm hoping that I work myself out of a job. You know what I mean? That I don't want abortion funds to have to exist, right? The reason we exist is because there's a need. If I had my way, you would be able to do like telemedicine, get the pills get them mailed to you, do it in the privacy of your own home, not be harassed by people outside of a clinic, and just to have abortion accessible to anybody who needs it. And that would be the ideal situation, right? Just if you needed it, you got it, no questions asked, no judgment, no harassment, nothing, and you're able to get the care that you need. And this is true for any care really in the United States, that if you needed an abortion, if you had cancer, if you broke your arm, that you were able to get the care that you needed, and it wouldn't cost you a penny, and you would be able to feel like you were taken care of.
My dream is to not exist, that people can go into their OBGYN. It could be offered with your like gyno or something, like just something so basic. So like routine, not really routine, but something you can do just on a whim. If you need it, you go and get it and you're good to go. Maybe we could exist as abortion doulas, you know what I mean? That can give people, care packages and offer spas, and people who obtain the medication, they don't want to do it alone, they can come to our spa facility, the Frontera Fund spa or something like that, like channel our energy that way, and non-judgmental post-abortive support, because we live in a society where abortion is normal and okay, and because it is, and there's no pushback. So that would be really, really neat, and that'd be pretty fun too.
Well, thank y'all for sharing those hopes and dreams with us. But luckily we have y'all, we have Frontera Fund, we have all our funds across the Texas. We have different funds across the state of Texas, but we have y'all here in the Rio Grande Valley to support the people in our community who do seek abortion care. I'm just so glad that y'all come in to do this work with no judgment, no stigma, no fear, and just being fearless and really doing the hard work. So I just want to thank y'all so much for everything that y'all do. Y'all are doing amazing work. Please continue to do please continue to do this work, and anything that I can do to uplift it. I mean, this conversation was the point of this series is to uplift the people doing this kind of work across different issues in our community. So I'm glad that we were able to sit down this morning and have this conversation. Where can folks plug in to Frontera Fund? And what kind of stuff can people do? Can they, other than donating, what kind of stuff do y'all need support with?
They can reach us. We have all of our socials. We're on Twitter at La Frontera Fund, on Instagram at Frontera Fund RGV, on Facebook. If you just, I think, Google Frontera Fund, you should be able to find us. Or on Facebook, search through there. We're also on the web, fronterafundrgv.org. We are always, right now we're really building capacity to onboard volunteers. So we're really looking for people to help us, do the day-to-day work that we do, take calls, help people get the care that they need, doing advocacy work, making those calls to the representatives and letting them know to support Rosie's law and not to support anti-abortion legislation. And, just have conversations about abortion, say the word, don't use some weird innuendo like, oh, the procedure, or, something like that. Like, say the word abortion, talk to your family, talk to your community about what you feel is important about abortion, and have those conversations, because if we continue having these conversations like on the low down, and we're never going to break that stigma. So little simple things like that. Say the word abortion and don't be afraid of it.
Abortion across my face. Like
good. Good, because it's just a medical procedure, right? It's like, it's not a big deal. And yeah, have those conversations with the community and your family. And I come from a very, very Catholic family. Like a lot of people in the Valley. I'm from the Valley. I grew up here. I come from a very Catholic family on my husband's side, my side. Like, we're just, we grew up very Catholic. So we were kind of educated about abortion in a very conservative view, but it never sat well with me the way they were always kind of dictating, especially female bodies or pregnant bodies. And so I always was like, oh, I'm pro-choice. And even doing this work, my family has come around to being really supportive, even if they're not 100% on board. It's important to kind of push those boundaries a little bit, little by little, to kind of break that stigma.
But after you like our socials and interact with them, sort of check into our social media, our profiles and stuff, because we are navigating the COVID situation, seeing how things play out. But I love a big event. So we're hoping for that day to come back. But we're doing virtual events. We have stuff going on. We had a lot going on with Fundathon. We're hoping we can have more events going on, more fundraisers going on. We could use help with those. So yeah, keep posted. And also, a big reminder is that, talk about abortion. It's okay. We need to destigmatize this word. It's just it's not a dirty word. It's abortion care. It's normal. And believe it or not, one thing that I came across when I was sort of just starting, in the abortion rights movement, was overwhelmingly the people you talk to are pro-choice. There's just so much stigma that people feel like we can't talk about it, like abortion's taboo. But more often than not, if you talk to someone about it, they'll be like, you know what, yeah, I am pro-choice, and maybe just hadn't had that conversation before. So just talking about it and bringing it up nonchalantly in conversation creates shockwaves. Just last year, because of this destigmatizing work we've been doing with Frontera Fund for a few years now, last year we had the most positive news reports we've ever had. News outlets shouting out our bake sale, news outlets talking to us about it, and that is a first. And every year is different, every reporter is different, right? But that is sort of to me a little bit of proof showing that talking about it is working. So yeah, don't be afraid. And if you need, how do I have this conversation with my friend, or with, I feel like we're happy to help with that too. It's providing people with those resources to destigmatize abortion here in the RGV is pretty important to us too.